Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Digital Nomad World weekly series. I'm Becky, and once again, I will be your host today. We are so excited today to have my guest, Aliza Virani, with us to talk about the world's first fertility co-living space. Aliza, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Becky, for having me.
Thank you for creating this project. I'm really excited to share what it's about. First of all, Lisa, can you share more about your background and how you started first your digital nomad journey, and then we're going to get into your project.
Of course. So I originally had no desire to travel until I had this sudden urge to travel all at once. So it was back in 2017, and I could only get 2 weeks off, as most Canadians and Americans can. And I was struggling to figure out where to go in such a short time frame. And then there was this massive accounting error that was made, and everyone in my department was laid off, and it was just the move I needed. So I booked a one-way ticket to Thailand. And when I got there, everything about the trip felt counterintuitive. And I was discussing the options with my mom about coming home, but then my dad chimed in and was like, no, you started this, you finish it. So it was great advice and ultimately brought me to digital nomading as well as working abroad in Dubai, where I landed my dream job in events. I was doing the events for brands such as Esquire, GQ, Harper's Bazaar, and Condé Nast Traveler. And since then, I've lived in several countries and made my way around the world and fallen in love with digital nomading.
That is great. I'm sure you never thought that first trip was going to lead to a life on the road, but as so many of us know in this lifestyle, that is exactly what can happen.
Yeah, yeah.
And I also, from what you've said, you have a lot of experience in event planning already, which I'm sure is one part of that one piece of the puzzle here that's going to lead to this fertility co-living. But I want to ask, okay, what is a fertility co-living space and how did you come to start this project?
Okay, so 2 years ago in 2023, I froze my eggs, and I had learned about infertility from a friend of mine who, in her late 20s, was having trouble conceiving and facing infertility. Due to COVID, I ended up actually freezing in doing the procedure in 2023 in Canada, and despite my initial reasons for freezing being initially empowering, and I also had the support of my entire family and all my friends, when it came to the actual procedure, I felt very alone. So one of the emotional tolls that I can bring up that I'm sure can resonate with our audience was that I hadn't found the right partner yet, and that brought up a lot of uncertainty about whether I ever would and what the future held. And it generated emotional stress, which was also actually it was detrimental for egg freezing because of its impact on egg quality. So I ended up with 3 eggs, which is a very low number. So I was advised to go for another round, which many women in their 30s are also advised to do so. And every new round I would go through would cost me $15,000. So at that price, I thought I should leverage better care at a more affordable cost abroad. And because I was location independent, that was a possibility for me. So I started doing research in all sorts of different countries. And I learned that there was a lot of information to know. It was, government regulations, compliance, inclusivity. Even every clinic had its own regulations, and there was different laws on sperm donation and single women and open donors and closed donors. That's when I realized there was just this massive gap in information on egg freezing. And another important factor is where you freeze is likely where you'll end up using your eggs. So I actually had to learn about the entire process all the way to fertilization, transfer, and implantation to know, where was the best place to do the entire procedure. So I wanted to provide an experience that I didn't have during my egg freezing procedure. And the Fertility Co-Living, it's a retreat for egg freezing treatment, and we partner with top tier international medical clinics, and we service everybody in a calm, stress-free, and supportive environment. It's a retreat. It's not just a medical procedure. And that's the mindset you need to get the best results. By partnering with, medical partners abroad and we're able to select the best care worldwide. We're able to say, this country gives us access to this country can give us access to this. So where is best? I often get asked that question, where is best to freeze my eggs? And for me, Mexico was a great solution, and that's why we're starting there. So removing borders around medical care allows us to actually access the best care at affordable rates.
Okay, so Mexico, yes, you have a website, the fertilitycoliving.com, already set up. So after people watch this and listen to this, you can go and check everything out. On that website, as you just mentioned, you are going to start in Mexico City, and you
Mhm.
are going to have your first retreat June 1st, and then another one on September 7th. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so I am going to admit to you, Aliza, that I have not frozen my eggs, and I also don't know I don't know very much at all about the process.
Okay.
So I have some questions for you. I know that you need to prepare your body, right, before it happens. So can you tell us like the timing of that, and if people are interested in joining a retreat or doing something like this together, like you're now providing, how soon should they start preparing for it? And are you going to provide all that information for them?
Yes, absolutely. So, what a lot of people don't know is IVF is essentially broken into three parts. So egg retrieval, fertilization, and then transfer. So, with egg freezing, you're actually doing the first part of IVF, and then you're freezing it in time. Um, so, with the fertility co-living, we want to make sure everybody has all the information they need the entire duration of the journey. So egg development actually begins 3 months, so 90 days prior to the retrieval. So we set you up with a nutritionist, and they guide you through the supplements you should be taking, the diet you should be following, to help prepare the quality of your eggs along this journey before you even come into Mexico City. And then we also have monthly calls with the clinic with the lead doctor who will take you through the whole process, and not just the whole process of egg freezing, but what to expect after and what comes after, like years down the road, what to expect from fertilization, sperm donation, as well as transfers and implantation. So there's no part of the journey that when you come to that step, you're like, oh, I didn't know that was the next step, which I found happened a lot in my journey. And there wasn't much preparation as well. We also have you being consulted with a psychologist who specializes in fertility, because egg freezing can take a very large emotional toll on you. And we want to prepare everybody mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually for the best outcome. So we've created a comprehensive plan that will give you the best outcomes to reduce the number of rounds you have to do and increase the quality of your eggs.
Fantastic. Why do you think, what are some benefits that women will get when they come together and do this together? I know you've already mentioned a few, but why do you think it's so powerful to bring everybody together?
So having social support in any situation can enhance your experience, and with egg freezing, it's no different. Um, as I mentioned, this is the first part of IVF. And so that essentially means that you're facing your first family journey alone. You're also financially, contributing to this first family step alone. And what it does by addressing it in a community setting is makes you feel like you're not alone for those who may not have partners at that time. And you'll have a sisterhood around you of women who are all going through the same experience, and that will help alleviate any of the isolation, which is one of the largest pain points when it comes to egg freezing.
Okay. Now, as I told you, I don't know much about the process, but you mentioned that it can be a big emotional toll. And I also know I have a friend who froze her eggs in Thailand, and I
Mhm.
remember her telling me that she had to give herself injections. I don't even know what she was injecting herself with, but can you go into that? Because I imagine, and maybe you can correct me, if someone else can give me an injection instead of myself, that would be great. If somebody at the Fertility Co-Living, for example.
Yeah, that's a great question. Injections and self-injecting is one of the, top reasons that women are kind of apprehensive about this treatment. I did it myself and it was fine. I don't have a huge issue with injections. It kind of was a bit interesting to do for the first couple of days, but after a few days, it does really take a toll on you. Um, and so in the Fertility Co-Living, we've actually arranged for a nurse to come to the house and do the injections for the women every morning so that they don't have to do it themselves. And that just goes to show another step we can take because of affordability in Mexico City.
That would be such a relief for me personally, because I think I would have a problem
You're not
self-injecting.
alone.
Yeah. How long do you need, how long and how often do you need to give yourself these injections? And the emotional toll, is that from, are you injecting yourself with hormones that are causing you to feel stress? Or I'm not sure. I really don't know this
Yeah, so
process.
you're injecting medications that are going to help increase the egg, help stimulate more eggs. Essentially, it's not mimicking the process of a natural pregnancy. You're trying to get more eggs to mature in your ovaries than normally would. So that's that's kind of what you're injecting. And the other part of your question was,
Yeah, so if you like how often do you need to inject yourself? Like how many days before the actual procedure in Mexico City? And do you have to do it afterwards as well?
yeah, so the injections are only for the 14 days during your stay in Mexico City. So you won't have to do any injections, when you're back in your home country or wherever you might be living. You'd only have to do that once you get to Mexico City. And different protocols, like our protocols with our lead doctor, are completely personalized to each individual based on their history, their age, their ovarian reserve, which is how many eggs they have left, um, and their blood tests. So based on that, they'll decide what medications you need to take and how often you need to take them. For me, I had 3 injections at first, and then I had to add one more on. And so there was two in the morning, and there was one at night, and then there ended up being two in the morning and two at night. Um, but as I mentioned, everybody has their own protocol, and even different clinics have different protocols on what they believe is most effective.
Okay. Now, I've heard, and you mentioned this as well, that often when you get where you get injected is where you have to go again to get them retrieved. And okay, I'm not sure. Do you need to can those eggs leave the country, or do you have to, what happens after you freeze your eggs? Do you have to keep them in the country where you froze them?
You don't. You can move them, but there are risks and costs associated with moving your eggs. So it's always important when you're looking at freezing your eggs abroad, it's important to understand, even if you're freezing your eggs at home, it's important to understand that where you freeze is likely where you're going to complete the procedure should you need to continue. So that means where you're going to fertilize them and where you're going to transfer them and implant them. And why that is important is because you have to look at affordability, and egg freezing might not be that large of a difference. It's like, okay, I understand it's more expensive in America, but I'd like to do it here. But down the road, when you go to use those eggs, um, well, first of all, annual storage in America ranges anywhere from $500 to $1,200 a year. And if you're looking at keeping them for, 5 years, that can be $6,000. Whereas in Mexico City at our partner clinic, the first 2 years are free, and then every year after that is $245. So that's a lot more affordable. That's about a fifth of the cost or a sixth of the cost. And then obviously the IVF treatments are also going to be much cheaper. So when it comes to transporting your eggs, there is risk because they do have to be transferred frozen. And should, anything go wrong, it's not really something we can go back in time and retract. And also it's very costly and there's an importation process. So when you're bringing like, live biological products into a country and you're considered exporting and importing. So there can be a lot of paperwork and it's quite complicated. And and the clinic that you're actually transferring to can also charge like a receiving fee. So it's something that most clinics don't recommend, and we try to avoid overall. So I do highly recommend looking at the whole picture when you choose your clinic.
Thank you for explaining all of this. There's so many things we're not even aware of or think that we need to consider. And is it usually a monthly? Are you charged monthly once you freeze your eggs to keep them there?
Generally, it's annually. There are some clinics that charge monthly in the US, but very few. Usually it's annually. And so my clinic charges me $450. And but most clinics kind of charge anywhere between $500 to $1,200 and in the US. So my clinic is in Canada, but clinics in the US can charge anywhere from $500 to $1,200. There are packages where you can purchase 10 years at a discounted rate of $2,500. So then it kind of does come down to 250, which is super affordable and reasonable if you're freezing your eggs at 25 or somewhere in your early 20s. But with women that are, 30, 35, and they're only looking to, freeze their eggs for maybe 3 years, 3 to 5 years, you end up looking at that cost of $2,700 and it ends up being around $900 a year. So again, that becomes expensive since you're not freezing for you're not storing them for such a long time.
Yeah, there's a lot of things to consider. Okay, I want to go back to the fertility co-living space that you're making. So you've said you're going to do it in Mexico City. Where are you planning and how are you planning to have everybody stay together? How many women will be allowed as a maximum?
So we are limiting the retreat to 10 women, and we just think that's like the magic number of creating the experience we want to create. They will all be in the same house. We will have communal spaces for all of our in-house activities, such as, yoga, guided meditation, sound baths, group journaling, group, movie nights. So they'll all be in the same house, and they will have access to their own private rooms. And they will be in an area that is conveniently located close to the clinic, and we will provide them with a guide on where to eat and where to find different things they might need. And they really only have to book their flight. I mean, even everything from the airport transfer is going to be handled and included in the retreat price.
So just to clarify, the food, they're still like going to go out or, food is not being like cooked by someone in the
No,
house or
food
you're
is,
not.
yeah, that's a great thing to point out. Food is not being provided. We decided not to provide it because there is going to be differences in diet. People also eat at different times. So the feedback I found was in this scenario, it's especially with digital nomads and people that are a bit more like location independent. I think it was just better to gear it towards having your own flexibility and independence to get food wherever you want. Also, Mexico City has amazing food, and so I think people would want the opportunity to check it out. We will organize some communal nights for dinner where everyone can go out and grab dinner at this great restaurant together, or everyone orders in and we all hang out and have a dinner together and talk and things like that. So we will organize in-house activities that are organized around food, but people have the freedom to eat when and what they want.
Imagine you're going to have a kitchen, like a pretty big kitchen in the
Yes,
house,
a
if it
big kitchen.
10 bedroom minimum. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm wondering, like, there's a few other points I realized I didn't cover here, especially for people who've never considered this process before. What is the best age, or is there a maximum age that is recommended to freeze your eggs?
So this is a question that I think kind of changes as we go along with science and technology. Right now, the best time to, I mean, sooner, as soon as you can is always the best answer. Um, because as we get older, there is a decline in quality and quantity of our eggs. And so egg freezing is recommended under 35. That being said, the average age that women are freezing at is 38. And that's just because I believe, there was a lack of education on fertility and women are really, unfortunately, being blindsided by infertility. So there is definitely still a point, let's call it, in freezing your eggs from 35 to, I talk to women in their 40s, if you believe there's going to be a chance, that you would like to have a family or you'd be considering it. Um, One thing I'd like to, so the older you get, the more rounds you may need, and that's just because you may get eggs of lower quality, and they'd recommend getting more eggs that have, that are at better quality because those are more likely to actually fertilize, turn into an embryo, and then eventually make it into implantation. We need to give it a few chances. That being said, I have talked to doctors, and they have said that the information and the kind of numbers and ages we're using now is based off of science from now or even years before. And remember, with egg freezing, we're freezing time. So if we freeze today, in 5 years, when we go use them, like I'm 35 now, if I go and use my eggs at 40, well, the benefit is that science will actually have advanced in that time, and there might actually be a massive, you know, increase in the technology and the processes and the ability to successfully thaw and fertilize and implant these eggs into women. That's much higher. The rate is much higher than it is today. So I wouldn't let these ages that are kind of on the internet now scare you. I think the most important thing to consider is your mental health, your emotional health, and then your physical body health. And that's going to take you a lot further than, than necessarily just, I mean, your age is important, but I think it's also very important how well you keep your mind and your body and your spirit.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a friend who was around 40 when she froze her eggs, and she was told she had very high quality eggs, especially for her age. So you just never know until you
You
start to
never
get to.
know. Yeah, and they're doing, crazier and crazier things. The 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 age that the eldest woman to have conceived from a frozen transfer was, I believe, 57. No, 50, like in her 50s, 57, I think. And so, I mean, they're just pushing the bar more and more. And in 1992, they actually ended up transferring an egg, but it ended up to be twins that were actually frozen 30 years prior. So, I mean, this is a relatively new industry, and I think it's just going to keep getting more and more innovative.
That sounds like it. And it's just really, I'm so surprised that no one has thought of doing a co-living together for fertility for this process before, because it just seems like, why wouldn't you want to share this, this difficult experience with other women to help ease that, stress that you may be having?
Yeah, I totally agree. I I mean, there's the closest thing you could, yeah, I don't know why. I really don't know why. I'm very glad and excited to be part of it because I just think it's such a need, honestly.
Yeah. And one final question about the details here. So, how many eggs typically are they looking for you to be able to produce, or how many should you freeze as a minimum to be considered like, okay, it's successful, your egg freezing process?
So it is difficult to put like a number on it. We have women that have had, you know, lots of eggs, maybe like 20, 15 eggs, let's say, and, none were viable. None ended up being viable. And then I also have a friend, and her mom actually did IVF way back in the day. And she got one egg, and that one egg made it through all the stages that there are for the egg to have to go through. And that one egg was a success and ended up being her. So, there are these kind of outlier cases. However, they do recommend, under 35, it's 15 to 20 eggs, and then 35 to 40, it's 15 to 20, sorry, 20 to 30, and then over 40, you'd probably need 30 to 40 eggs. And you want to make sure that the egg is in, it's mature, it's a mature egg. So not all eggs that we retrieve are mature, so not all eggs can actually be frozen. So what that means is as you get older, it just becomes a bit more difficult to get good quality eggs, mature eggs from every round. And so you might have to do more rounds, and we might have to strategize a bit with the doctor in terms of medication. They might put you on different medications, ones that are a little bit more stimulating. And but I would never tell anybody, it's too late. There's no point. I've heard some really, discouraging comments made to women that are in their 30s or over 30 or over 40. I mean, it's 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 simply not true. There are outlier cases in both directions. So I think women should just be encouraged and empowered to take control of their fertility as soon as they can, and yeah, do what they want to do.
Well, Aliza, I mean, I'm so impressed that you've come up with this venture. You've clearly done the research. And from what I understand, you're open and now you're already accepting applications for the first 10 women for June. Is it just for June 1st right now, or June 1st and September 7th?
Oh, yes, we're accepting applications, or we're doing consultations for both right now.
And as you said, like at least 90 days before, it's important to start preparing the body. I mean, I'm sure as soon as possible would be the best, but
Yeah.
you're going to be able to provide people with the information about what they need to do. And yeah, it's a really exciting and empowering experience, I think, for any woman listening to this. Maybe some that have never considered it are now much more informed after this conversation.
I hope so. I think if we can, you know, get women to just, get more informed about their body and be knowledgeable about what's going on. Whatever they decide, whether it's egg freezing or not, whether it's egg freezing in their home country or not egg freezing, it's just important to have these options, know what these options are, and make these choices about your own body.
Yeah, definitely. Aliza, is there anything else that you would like to share with us before we go, including where people can go to get more information about your project? Any social media you want to share?
Yeah, I think I might just quickly touch a bit on pricing because I just want people to understand that why we're targeting, why Mexico City, which is, I think, a question a lot of people have. Do we have time for just,
Oh, we've got time. Yeah, we've got
okay.
time you need.
So, um, so our first two retreats are targeting the US, so we can start there. And I have some little notes on these prices, but just so I don't forget them. But typical costs in for egg freezing in the US range from 12 to $15,000. And that's not even the full picture. So many clinics, they don't include their consultation fees, which range from $100 to $500, medications, which can range from $4,000 to $9,000, and storage fees, which also on average can range from $500 to $1,200 a year. And often you're storing these eggs, as I mentioned, for 5 years, for 5 years or longer. So now let's talk about what we offer. Our first retreat is priced at $8,250, and our second retreat in September is priced at $8,550. This includes all the treatments we've discussed, plus accommodations. So the treatments are acupuncture, massage, red light therapy, nutrition consultations, psychological consultations, in-house guided yoga, sound baths, meditation, journal, intention setting. And everything is included in that one retreat price. You just book your flight. Our medications now average around $1,900, and the first 2 years, as I mentioned, of storage is free. And after that, it's $245. Your first consultation with us is completely free. So already upfront, the investment is much lower, but what really sets us apart is the added value. So not only is it more affordable, but we're also offering you so much more out of the clinic. And then it's also important to talk about future costs. So women in their 30s are often recommended, as we mentioned, to do 2 or 3 rounds of egg freezing to get that magic number that we're trying to reach. So in the US, that means paying $12,000 to $15,000 each time. With the Fertility Co-Living, any additional rounds are just $2,500, which will save you upwards of $30,000 over multiple rounds. And here's another factor. When, as I mentioned, where you freeze your eggs is where you'll likely end up using them. So for steps 2 and 3 of the IVF process, as we talked about, which is egg thawing, fertilization, and then the transfer, in the US, that can cost around $20,000 per cycle. But at our partner clinic, that same treatment is $3,000. Okay, so stick with me. I know I've thrown a lot of numbers at you. So the average woman goes through 6 rounds of IVF to reach a successful chance of having a baby. That's $120,000 in the US versus $18,000 with us. And medication, it's often $6,000 less per round with our clinic, adding up to another $24,000 in cost savings. When you combine all those numbers, the cost savings are incredible. Freezing your eggs with us can save you $50,000 upfront for egg freezing, $126,000 down the road when you use them, and $700 per year in storage. And that doesn't even include the savings on ultrasounds, genetic testing, blood tests, or anything else that might come up, which is a lot more affordable in Mexico. And there's no skimping on the quality. We have highly vetted our partner clinic, and they share this entire vision with us. It's just a 360-degree approach to help ensure that you have the best results, and we can actually reduce the amount of, increase the egg quality you receive, increase the number of eggs you're retrieving, and reduce the number of rounds you have to go through. So I really strongly believe that wanting a child and fertility should not have to cost you your entire life savings. And that is a very strong point that I'm just passionate about in terms of affordability and the discussion, which is, a really strong topic right now about affordability of healthcare and not just affordability of care, but also access to care and long wait times, and then also the integrative approach. Insurance companies don't cover things like acupuncture and massage therapy and red light therapy, even though some of these are proven to have results which can increase your fertility by up to 22%. And when I mean proven, by science-backed, evidence-based. So our house has put that all together, created the formula of what's going to give you your best shot at this. And that's what we're creating. It's more than just like a medical procedure. And with us, it's truly optimizing every aspect of your state to get the best results.
mean, you couldn't have put it better, Aliza. This is a no-brainer. If you find this video, you're listening to this, like you need to contact Lisa as soon as possible if you've ever thought about freezing your eggs, because really, like I can tell you, and I know you could tell the audience as well. I've been to Mexico City multiple times, and I know maybe people from the US in particular, some other countries watching this, they're like, oh, it might be a dangerous place where no one speaks English. It is
Yeah,
the opposite of that. There are parts of Mexico City nicer than some of the nicest cities in the US that I've seen. Average cities for sure. And the healthcare, I've had healthcare there. It is top quality, it's really hands-on, and there is no language barrier when it comes to English. They
no.
will speak English. You don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, especially in Mexico City, and that's why we chose it and for its proximity to the US and its the flight availability. I mean, we just want to make it frictionless for people. So, yeah, if you haven't visited Mexico City, this would be a great opportunity to do so, make a vacation out of it. But it is a wonderful country and city. So I agree.
Great weather, so you're not gonna have to worry so
Yeah.
much about that. Cross the fingers on that when you're there. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a great choice that I think you've made for the location as well.
Thank you. And I think you mentioned art, so our web where people can go if they want to follow us. Our website is www.thefertilitycoliving.com, and our Instagram handle is the Fertility Co-Living. And I would just encourage people that are interested to reach out, and don't forget about our June 1st and September 7th retreats. And they can follow us on Instagram and see where we continue to open retreats around the world.
Yes, this is really needed out there, and I think people are going to benefit from it so much. Thank you, Eliza, for
Thank
sharing
you.
this with us.
Such a
Yeah,
pleasure.
wish you the best of luck with this project, and we're going to put all the links in the description so people can find you.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye.